Yesterday, as you all know, the president came to Louisiana. He spent about 7.5 hours on the ground, and I was with him throughout that. And he was able to talk to many local leaders and residents. He was able to get on the ground in multiple parishes and see the devastation firsthand. And that always makes a difference, especially when you're making the multitude of significant requests that we are making for assistance from the federal government. And I do want to thank him and all of our federal partners for the assistance they've already rendered. He signed a pre-landfall declaration upon my request that got personnel, assets, commodities moving to Louisiana well ahead of the storm. He signed the major disaster declaration upon my request that allowed us to have 100% federal reimbursement for debris removal and for emergency protective measures for the first 30 days. It turned on individual assistance. We're going to talk about that. It turned on public assistance. And we just had a good conversation with the Livingston Parish officials about these things. There, as I mentioned, individual assistance is available. Please register if you are an IDA survivor and you've not yet done so. You can do that by going to disasterassistance.gov, or you can call 800-621-3362. Now, thus far in Louisiana, 337,000 families are registered, and those families have already been approved for, and many have already received, $165 million. Here in here in Livingston Parish, it's 7,000 registrants. So that's 7,000 families have already registered, and I think it's $1.5 million for those individuals. Now, anytime you have a disaster and anytime you have relief programs, you're going to have people who are out there who are not good neighbors, and they're going to come in and try to take advantage of the situation with a scam and fraud. FEMA representatives always have a badge that identifies themselves. They are never going to ask you for money. So understand that. If you have any question about who you're dealing with, whether it's with respect to FEMA or somebody who's a contractor or whatever, you take pictures of them, their automobile, and their license plate. Because if they're trying to scam you, chances are they're going to leave you alone when you do that. If you doubt a FEMA representative is legitimate, don't visit with them. Hang up on them if they call you, and call FEMA at the same number to report the incident. That's 800-621-3362. Earlier this week, we announced that the Army Corps of Engineers has activated the Blue Roof program. Already 33,000 people have registered for this service. It is free to homeowners in the following parishes: Ascension, Jefferson, Lafourche, Livingston, Orleans, Plaquemines, St. Bernard, St. Charles, St. James, St. John the Baptist, St. Tammany, Tangipahoa, Terrebonne, and just added St. Helena Parish as well. We have additional parishes that are being assessed. Again, this service is free to homeowners. Now, it has to make your home habitable, so if your home is destroyed to the point where a blue roof doesn't allow you to live in it, you're not going to qualify. But if you have any questions about whether you qualify, we want you to call. And you can call toll-free 1-888-ROOF-BLUE. There is no E on the end of that, so it's 1-888-ROOF-BLU, and that is 888-766-3258. I'm going to encourage everybody who has roof damage to make that call because I saw last year after Hurricane Laura, this same program delivered 13,000 or 14,000 roofs in southwest Louisiana. The homeowners who took advantage of this program had blue roofs installed professionally that actually withstood Hurricane Delta. Those who did it themselves, those tarps were blown off early in that storm, and then they did not have that protection, and they actually suffered more damage than they otherwise would have. And it doesn't take a hurricane to do that. As you know, it rains here quite frequently, so please avail yourself of this program. Disaster unemployment assistance has been turned on for the 25 parishes that were part of the major disaster declaration granted by the president. The best way for people to file their disaster unemployment assistance application is online by visiting www.laworks.net and using the LWC Hire portal. Typically in Louisiana, unemployment claims come with what we call a week of waiting. I want you to know that has been waived. There will be no week of waiting when you complete one of these claims and you are eligible. We want people to get their benefits as soon as possible. I'm extremely grateful to President Biden and FEMA, and I was able to tell the President this yesterday, for activating, upon my request, the Transitional Sheltering Assistance Program, which will bring much needed relief to people from Southeast Louisiana who need temporary housing. It's eligible for survivors with a damaged dwelling address within the federally designated parishes. And I'm going to give you these lists of parishes again, because these are slightly different than the Blue Roof. These are Ascension, Assumption, East Baton Rouge, East Feliciana, Iberia, Iberville, Jefferson, Lafourche, Livingston, Orleans, Plaquemines, Pointe-Coupee, St. Bernard, St. Charles, St. Helena, St. James, St. John the Baptist, St. Martin, St. Mary, St. Tammany, Tangipahoa, Terrebonne, Washington, West Baton Rouge, and West Feliciana. Now, these individuals are eligible to stay in hotel rooms. And there are 10 states, including Louisiana, where you can go to in order to take advantage of this program in a hotel. The other states are Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Florida, Mississippi, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Texas. Now, under this program, you have to book your own rooms at the participating hotels. Those hotels are listed on disasterassistance.gov under the Transitional Sheltering Assistance Program. Or you can call the FEMA hotline. And that FEMA hotline never changes, by the way. It's always 1-800-621-3362. For TTY, you call 800-462-7585. And for 711 or video relay services, call 800-621-3362. For the National Guard, I want you to know that the entirety of the Louisiana National Guard was activated in advance of the storm coming ashore, and now we have combined forces with National Guard soldiers and airmen from other states through the EMAC request process, and we have some active duty Title X soldiers who are in support of current operations in Southeast Louisiana. So of that number, we've received 2,501 EMAC guardsmen from 10 states, and I want to pause to thank those states and particularly those governors because we sent the request out. They were very quick and generous in their response, and those 10 states are Florida, Mississippi, Missouri, Kansas, Texas, Tennessee, Oklahoma, North Carolina, Arkansas, and Georgia. And they have been and will continue to be integrated into all of our operations here in Louisiana. And those operations include 43 points of distribution and 3 hubs across 16 parishes. There were 6 pods that opened for the first time today. We have more pods that will be coming online tomorrow. Through the end of the day yesterday, more than 1.8 million meals had been distributed by the National Guard, right at 95,000 tarps, 2.1 million liters of water, 250,000 sandbags, and about 275,000 bags of ice. Electricity is one of the biggest challenges that we have across Southeast Louisiana. We know that, and depending on the damage to the infrastructure, the transmission lines, the distribution lines, as well as the generation capabilities, there's not an even rate of restoration going on, and that's always going to be the case. And I'm always happy to see people getting powered up, and some people are going to be quite a while. But we can report that as of noon today, we're down to 718,559 customers. That means homes and businesses. That's a lot more than 718,000 people who are still without power. But that's down from 1.1 million at the peak. And so we're thankful for that, and we are looking forward to having power restored to as many people as possible as soon as possible. President Ricks mentioned this a while ago, generator safety. I'm going to talk about confirmed deaths in just a moment, but I want to remind people that in storms like this, typically it isn't the direct impact of the storm that kills the most people. It's post-storm activities. And one of those has to do with the use of generators. If you've got a generator that you're using, please make sure that it's at least 20 feet from your residence. It's in a well-ventilated area. It is not in a crawl space, a garage, certainly not in the house with you, but really not even under a window or a door or a vent. This is tasteless, it is odorless, and you don't know it's happening until it's too late. And really sad, what happens a lot of time is people turn a generator on in order to get cool enough to go to sleep. A family will go to sleep, and sometimes they don't wake up. So please be very careful. And then we also learned this morning that there have been some incidents where professionally installed home generators, those that are there year-round, are operating too close to the house, particularly too close to a window or a vent, and they've caused some people to be sick too. So please, just because it's not a portable generator, make sure that you're being safe with your generators. Very sadly, we are reporting 12 storm-related deaths at this point. It does include 4 deaths related to carbon monoxide poisoning from generators. As of 7:30 this morning, there were 61 weather-related closures, but as of a few minutes ago, there are 60. So we are making progress. They're working extremely hard. And I do want to thank the DOTD crewmen who've been working so hard to get debris off roadways, and that's happening at the local level. The National Guard is particularly with their engineering units, or have done a lot of route clearance as well. But we still have issues around the state with debris. And sometimes a roadway is open, but the shoulder may have debris on it. So please slow down, be very careful, be patient, and always check 511la.org before you leave your home so you know whether it's safe to go where you're trying to get to and whether you need to have a different route to get you there. The report I got this morning at the UCG meeting is that we have 3,246 individuals in shelters across the state, and there are 28 shelters in operation. If you have been staying at home and you realize that that's just not tenable, the home is damaged too much, you don't have electricity yet, you don't have water, some combination of that, and you want to get to a shelter, please call 211, or you can text LA Shelter to 898-211, and we will make sheltering available to you. For disaster food assistance, the DSNAP request is in process. I'm encouraging residents to pre-register for DSNAP so that when it is approved, you're going to be able to access those benefits quicker. You text LA DSNAP to 898-211. And I want to remind you that it's just not time to activate DSNAP because we have to have a threshold of stores, grocery stores that are open in your area before we're allowed to send you these benefits. And the benefits, quite frankly, don't do you any good until we have stores where you can use those cards. Evacuee reunification. DCFS will be launching Connect. It's a way for families to locate loved ones who evacuated from Hurricane Ida to a state shelter. That will be done by the end of the day today. Families can call 225-342-2727, or you can go to dcfs.la.gov/form/DCFS-connect. That's a lot to remember. Call 225-342-2727. But we're going to try to get you connected with your loved ones. Something I really didn't want to have to cover this closely to the storm that just passed is the potential for additional severe weather. We are tracking a tropical weather system. We were briefed by the National Weather Service this morning. There is a system that's in the Bay of Campeche, and it is moving into the Central Gulf, and it's going to come close to Louisiana. Now, at this point, I'm not trying to be an alarmist. They're not necessarily predicting that it's going to strengthen into a hurricane, but they obviously cannot rule that out either. And so this bears careful monitoring over the next several days. But even if it visits our area as a tropical storm, we're in no condition to receive that much rainfall. And it could happen by the end of the week. So we want everybody to do what you can, and we're certainly going to be helping to get you in the best possible position to weather this storm by the end of the week. So pay attention to the National Weather Service, to local weather services as well, and to your local officials always, about whether it's time for you to come back home if you've been evacuated, about the curfews that you need to adhere to, and everything else that local officials tell you. Knowing how to contact your Office of Emergency Preparedness is very important. And if it's not this storm system, there certainly could be another at some point in the future. I will remind you that in the neighborhood of about 368 days, we've had 5 hurricanes make landfall in Louisiana. 4 of those were last year. Now, while we don't want any more, I don't think we get a vote. And so we have to be ready on that. To conclude, and before I take your questions, I know that this is a difficult situation for practically everybody in Southeast Louisiana. I know that in many cases, patience is wearing thin, people are hot and they're tired. They don't like waiting in line, and I get it. I assure you, we are doing, your local government is doing, the private sector, the nonprofit community, our faith-based community, we're all doing everything that we possibly can to speed relief to you. I'm asking you to be patient. I'm asking you to be good neighbors to one another. And I know that you will be. You always are. Louisianans are nothing if not faithful and resilient and good and decent and compassionate. And this is when it's needed the most. If you need to talk to someone because you're just emotionally drained, there are several hotlines available, and they're available around the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's the Keep Calm line at 1-866-310-7977. And then we have the Behavioral Health Recovery Outreach line, 1-833-333-1132. As always, check on your neighbors, especially if they're elderly or have special needs. Make sure you and your family are in the best possible position, and make sure that you lift up everyone in prayer that we will get through this sooner and in better shape than we can even imagine today. And with that, I will take a few questions. Yes, sir.
Forgive me if I don't pronounce the name right, but the social block grants that you get from the federal DHS.
Social Service Block Grant.
Did you get any assurances from the president as to whether we will get these for the first time since Katrina?
Well, I had an opportunity yesterday to discuss this with the president. I let him know it's not a customary feature of disaster recovery because we haven't received it since Katrina, but I assured him it was extremely important in this case, principally because of what I just told you. This is the 5th hurricane to hit our state in just a few days over a year. We've had a winter storm, a flood, and all of this during the course of a pandemic. And quite frankly, it's more than a lot of people can bear. If you're a healthcare provider, you have been stressed beyond belief for a year and a half. You have zipped more body bags than in that year and a half than most people will throughout the course of a career. You know, I gave you the number of deaths from the storm. I think we're at 12, right? In the last 7 days, we've lost 350 people to COVID. This is a tough time. And so, yes, I did ask for the Social Services Block Grant. I stressed how important that is to make mental health services, behavioral health services more available, to make sure that you strengthen the foster care system and so forth, because all of these systems really get stressed tremendously when you have these disasters. And these programs serve the most vulnerable people in our state. And so it is important that we make sure that we're doing all we can, and that is why I requested that. He assured me he understood the need for it. Of course, it takes Congress and the President working together to make sure that that's in an appropriation instrument that I hope comes much sooner than later. And I stress the importance not just of getting the relief that we're asking for, but getting it in a very timely fashion. Yes, sir.
Governor, can you tell us about this possible upcoming storm, how you're preparing for it, and how that could impact our current
Yeah,
restoration?
well, first of all, we've been speeding relief as much as we possibly can. And the importance of continuing to do that and getting even better if we're able to do that is underscored by the threat looming, whether it is this storm or some future storm. One of the things that I can tell you is, and we actually planned this before we knew anything about this particular weather system, is we are going to have a complete exercise at GOSAP about how do we respond as a state, working with our federal partners, working with all of our locals, to another hurricane while we are in our current posture, still responding to, not yet recovering from, but responding to the immediate aftermath of Hurricane Ida. And let me tell you, that's almost more than you can contemplate, because every emergency support function, and there are 17 of them in Louisiana, every one of them has to be executed differently. So you can't take your playbook that you normally use and put it on the desk in front of you and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. Because your people are no longer where they would have been otherwise. Your assets are no longer where they would have been otherwise. You already have certain hospitals that have been damaged and others at complete capacity. You're already housing people at special needs shelters. Do you have to evacuate those people in advance of the storm? You know, how do you, assuming it strikes another part of the state, how do you staff up the shelters that you need there? Where do you get all of the medical personnel for those hospitals and those clinics? And how do you do all this and continue to test for COVID and do the monoclonal antibody infusions and all? My head's getting painful just thinking about it. But I asked Livingston Parish today to undertake this same exercise because you know, it's more than a theoretical possibility. It happened to us last year, and it could happen to us again this year. We will be as ready as we can be. And I have no doubt our federal partners are leaning forward with us. But I am praying we don't have to do that. And I'm asking everybody else to make the same prayer. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Get to it?
You can get two.
Okay. Do we need to strengthen the infrastructure for the electrical system in the state?
Well, first of all, I think electrical infrastructure needs to be strengthened as a general matter everywhere. Certainly in this state. It is hard for me to imagine that we will ever have an electrical infrastructure or other types of infrastructure as well that can withstand a storm of this severity without any disruptions. But we know we can minimize those disruptions. But it's going to take a big investment. And it's an investment that over time will certainly pay for itself, especially when you consider that not just the severity of these weather events, but the frequency of severe weather events is increasing, it seems like every single year. And it's one of the things we talked about with the president extensively, and people have talked to him about this at every stop yesterday. And you know, for example, there is an infrastructure bill that the Senate passed. It's in the House of Representatives in Congress now, and there's an awful lot of money there that can improve infrastructure, including the electrical grid. You know, where possible in South Louisiana, I do think that we ought to be underground. I mean, we've seen towers collapse. We had the demolition on the tower that crossed the Mississippi River last night because that actually closed the Mississippi River for a week. I mean, we can do better, but it's going to take an investment and it's going to take a concerted effort. And so, yeah, we need to improve our infrastructure. We can't continue to build things back to the current standard. If the current standard were enough, we wouldn't have lost them, right? We wouldn't have lost the things that went out with this storm. And we know how to do that. Our building codes, you can go in any community that's been devastated by the storm, and you'll see buildings and homes that made it relatively unscathed, and then next door is one that's totally destroyed. And it was the workmanship, the materials, and the codes. You can take that lesson learned and you can extend it all across the infrastructure that serves us in common. But you can't do it without an investment. And so we already do make investments. And much of the federal money that comes down is going to require a state match if you want to avail yourself of it. So there is no way to participate in the federal programs to enhance our infrastructure if we're not also making that investment. So the short answer to your question is yes.
All right.
Look, I want to thank all of you for continuing to cover this. We've got a long way to go. This is absolutely going to be a marathon, but you know, that's one step at a time. And every day we're going to try to put more people's lives in a better place than where it was when they woke up that morning. I'm confident that we are doing that, and I do ask people to be patient. Let's help one another, and let's lift one another up in prayer, and we're going to get through this. Thank you all, and God bless.